Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin streaming show. I am Amber Miller, your host. And before we get to our guest, of course, just a couple announcements. If you're looking for additional information on events or advocacy, volunteer opportunities, you can definitely check out the AARP Wisconsin website, which is below at aarp.org/WI, which once again gives you a lot of information that might be of interest to you. Also, please remember the Community Connections website. There's a couple different things you can find here. One is volunteer opportunities created in your area, or you can create your own volunteer opportunities. So as we know, the weather is getting a little nicer out, so there might be an opportunity for you to put together a group for like neighborhood cleanup. So you can go do that at the website. And then you can also put a request in for the AARP Friendly Voice, which started right in the beginning of COVID. It's open to all ages. You do not need to be an AARP member, and there is no cost, but you could put a request in for yourself or for a loved one to receive a phone call from one of the AARP trained volunteers. So this could be, a daily phone call, a weekly phone call, because as we know, sometimes it's just nice to hear a friendly voice on the other end. So you can find information about that at the website below, aarpcommunityconnections.org, or by calling 1-888-281-0145. And even though we're still kind of in a virtual world, we're always looking for great volunteers to join the AARP Wisconsin family. So if you're interested in virtual and possibly upcoming in-person volunteer opportunities, we definitely encourage you to go to the website below, which is aarp.org/I-want-2. So I want to volunteer. It'll give you information about the volunteer opportunities and also an application that you can fill out online, and then you'll hear back from one of the AARP staff about opportunities. So once again, aarp.org, I want to volunteer, or you can go to the AARP Wisconsin website for additional information about volunteer opportunities. So as you may or may not know, March 14th to the 20th, so this week is Brain Awareness Week, which was founded by the Dana Alliance in 1996. And since then, it has evolved into a global campaign to increase public awareness of the progress and benefits of brain research. So we're excited to have Kate, who's the program manager with the Alzheimer's Association Wisconsin chapter. Hello, Kate.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. And if you are watching this as a live viewer, please remember you can post any of your questions below on our Facebook.com page, or if you're watching us on YouTube, and we'll be getting to them very shortly. So Kate, how many people are affected by Alzheimer's disease, and how do you know if families, I know, we don't know if it's Alzheimer's, we don't know if it's dementia. So what are some of the signs of that in somebody who might be having dementia or Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so there are over 6 million Americans who are living with Alzheimer's disease, and affect the family. So I'm glad you asked, about how do families notice, because there's over 11 million Americans that are caring for someone who has dementia. And so they're providing unpaid care and trying to determine, is this an issue, and how do I know what's happening to my loved one? So we know that when people get older, there's changes that happen, right? Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to think of someone's name when we see them in the store, or maybe we find ourselves losing things like our keys or our glasses more often. And so we can sometimes get a little bit nervous about, does that mean that I or my loved one have dementia? And so dementia is really different than those instances, which we consider to be sort of typical age-related changes that happen. Dementia symptoms are more likely to impact your day-to-day life. So on your screen, you see, some of those, what we consider the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. So we'll talk about a couple of them. Think about losing your keys, right? If you lose your keys, you have the ability, if you don't have dementia, to stop and ask yourself, when did I last have my keys, right? And then you retrace your steps and you think back like, okay, well, when I got home from the grocery store, I had them. And since then, maybe I fed the cat and I unpacked the groceries, and you start going back to those places in your house and looking for them. Doesn't mean you always find them right away, but you can retrace those steps. A person who has dementia will lose their keys, try to retrace their steps, and not remember when they last had them, not remember where they've been since then. So it's much more severe than just misplacing keys or misplacing glasses. Similarly, if you go to the grocery store and suddenly you can't remember the things you needed to make dinner tonight, that's maybe a typical age-related change that you are like, shoot, did I have cheese at home or did I not? I can't remember. And you can easily remedy that. You can make a list and bring a list to the grocery store with you. But dementia, again, more severe, it's impacting your day-to-day life. So an example of that would be you go to the grocery store, you have your list, and you can't remember the layout of a grocery store. You can't remember where you would find the milk or where you would find the cheese that's on your list. So it's really, again, a change that's impacting that day-to-day life more severely, whether it's a memory change or personality change. It's not, accidentally calling your son by your husband's name that we are concerned about.
And I can tell you, I call everybody by the wrong name. I get names mixed up, absolutely. And just as a friendly reminder, if you're watching this live, feel free to post your question below on our Facebook.com page or our YouTube page, and we'll be asking Kate about those momentarily. So, Kate, you gave really good examples of maybe when there should be a concern and when it's just life happens. Grocery list. I'm definitely guilty of that. When should families seek a doctor's opinion about memory concerns in their loved one?
Yeah, so as soon as you have that concern, as soon as you find yourself questioning, is this normal or is it not? That's the time to pay attention and bring those things up to their doctor. So have a conversation, and you can have that conversation in person at the appointments. You can call ahead of time if you're not sure how to bring it up and ask the nurse. But we have a tool that's called the 10 steps to approach memory concerns. And that is something that you can use as well. It kind of goes through what are some of the concerns, what are some things to look for that can help you bring up that conversation. It's important that we address any of those changes that we're seeing, because not every change that looks like dementia is caused by an irreversible type of dementia. There actually are some things that may cause changes to memory or personality changes that can actually be reversed. So something like a vitamin deficiency or an infection or a thyroid condition can sometimes cause some of those symptoms. Even stress can cause memory changes and can cause changes to our cognition. So allowing your loved one and their doctor an opportunity to both rule out what might be causing those symptoms that is not dementia, but then also to do an assessment and find out, if it's not one of those physical things that we can rule out that may be reversible, is it an irreversible dementia? Maybe they find out that there's no concerns at all. You're just, you're a little bit worried and you're noticing maybe some typical aging. But what that does is it allows their provider to develop a baseline and really find out, what does your loved one's cognition look like on a good day? So that in a year, if you have a concern again, or in 3 years, if you have a concern, we can compare where they're at in 3 years to where they were at today. So just so that, viewers are aware, memory assessments or, looking at how someone's cognition is doing are actually something that can be done as a part of the Medicare annual wellness visit. So if you have a concern and you're due for that visit, feel free to ask your provider. That cognitive assessment is covered by that visit. So even if you have no memory concerns, you can have it done and get a baseline.
I know my mom just did it. She was telling me about it with her doctor. So and I wasn't aware of that. So thank you for that reminder. And Kate, I know there's you have a slide coming up regarding the dementia umbrella, and that talks a little bit about, because people once again might still be watching this like, is it Alzheimer's? Is it dementia? So why don't we bring that up? If you could maybe just talk a little bit about this for our viewers who still might be looking at it like, should I be concerned?
Yeah, of course. And, I think a lot of people hear that word dementia and they hear Alzheimer's and they think maybe they're the same thing. Is that word interchangeable? So I really like this picture. It's got a big umbrella. You see dementia is the umbrella. And Alzheimer's disease is one of the things underneath that umbrella. So dementia is what we consider to be like a set of symptoms. So those symptoms can be memory loss, it can be personality change, it can be behavior change. And sometimes dementia is caused by something reversible, like we talked about. It could be caused by a urinary tract infection that we're seeing these dementia-like symptoms. But dementia that is caused by an irreversible cause is, damage that's happening to the brain. And so Alzheimer's disease, like you saw in that image, is the most common cause of dementia symptoms. And so it accounts for 60 to 80% of all cases of dementia. And Alzheimer's disease is caused by that buildup of amyloid plaques and tau tangles. You may have heard of amyloid and tau. And that is what then causes the death of brain cells. But there's other forms of dementia you see here. There's vascular dementia, which can be caused by some type of vascular episode, whether that's a stroke or a mini stroke. There's something called dementia with Lewy bodies, which is a dementia that is caused by the buildup of this protein called alpha-synuclein. And so again, that protein can cause some brain cell death. There's frontotemporal dementia, which is a type of dementia that affects, as you probably guessed, the frontal lobe of the brain. So maybe you see more personality changes with that type of dementia. So there are a variety of different types of dementia. And again, the symptoms can vary. If you have a loved one who has dementia with Lewy bodies, you might be seeing them have more hallucinations, auditory or visual hallucinations. They're seeing and hearing things that aren't there. So doctors can sometimes look at what those symptoms are. They can look at the way that the person has been affected to try to determine what type of dementia is it. Someone with frontotemporal dementia, again, if that frontal lobe is affected, that's where a lot of our personality is housed. So you might see behavior changes or personality changes that don't make sense for the person. Maybe they've become really impulsive and they weren't like that, or they don't have a lot of ability to control their emotions and they weren't like that. So different types of cognitive and neurological testing can help doctors determine what type of dementia is this under that umbrella that's causing these dementia symptoms. Sometimes they use brain scans. Sometimes it's just different types of tests that they can actually do in the clinic, written or verbal testing that they can do to really find out which areas of the brain are in good shape and which areas of the brain are not.
And Kate, my next question is a two-parter, because I appreciate you giving us this information. So the first part is there anything that we can do to reduce the risk of developing a type of dementia? And then the second, because this one hits home for me just because my grandmother and my great-grandma and my uncle, all on my father's side, all had dementia, which they unfortunately passed away from, or part of why they did. So it doesn't matter too if we have a family history.
Yeah, those are great questions. So to answer your question, yes, there are things that you can do to reduce your risk. And up on the slide right now, you see, there's 4 different categories that we think of behavior change or lifestyle change that can reduce your risk of developing dementia. And right now there's a ton of research in this field, and it looks at, our physical activity, exercise, diet and nutrition, social engagement, and cognitive activity. So we will be talking at the end a little bit about a program that we'll be offering later this month to AARP members, but we'll be talking in depth about all 4 of these domains and really figuring out what are the things that we can do to reduce our risk the most. And, they estimate that there are cases of dementia that could be prevented, possibly up to 30% of cases could be prevented with lifestyle modifications. And so ton of research in this field right now. There's actually a landmark study called the Sprint Mind study, which is partially funded by the Alzheimer's Association, that's even looked at aggressive treatment of high blood pressure. So treating high blood pressure to make sure that systolic number, that top number, is under 120 versus under 140. And that study found that there was a 20% lower incidence of mild cognitive impairment in the people who were treated aggressively. So there are things that we could potentially do that may be able to reduce our risk. And the association is funding an extension of that study to try to see what more can we learn from that. And then to answer your question about family history and, does it matter? It matters somewhat. but maybe not as much as we think that it does. And so there is a gene that's associated with the development of Alzheimer's disease, and it's considered a risk gene. So there are two different types of Alzheimer's. There's what we consider to be sporadic Alzheimer's, which is what most cases are. And then there's another type called familial Alzheimer's, and that accounts for only about 5% of all Alzheimer's cases. And so in sporadic Alzheimer's disease, the one that accounts for 95%, there's this gene called the APO gene. And there is a particular allele of the APO gene that could increase your risk for developing dementia, but it's not guaranteed. So, some people inherit that gene and they never go on to develop dementia. And some people don't inherit that gene and they do go on to develop dementia. So some people choose to be tested for that gene. Other people don't, right? Because there are potential, legal or financial implications with finding out, potential risk. But if we separated two groups of people and, one group, they all had that allele that could increase their risk, and the other group, none of them had it, we would still see some people in each group get dementia, and we'd see some people in each group who didn't. Just those who have that gene, there would be more of them who would develop dementia. So inheriting that gene isn't a guarantee that you will develop Alzheimer's disease, but it does increase your risk. With that rare type of Alzheimer's, that familial type of Alzheimer's, it's a different gene. And that gene, if you inherit it, it is deterministic in nature, meaning that if you inherit it, you will develop Alzheimer's disease. And again, that's a very small percent of Alzheimer's cases. It accounts for about 5% of cases. And families who have that gene in their gene pool usually work very closely with a genetic counselor to help understand that risk and, again, determine whether or not future generations want to be tested or not for that gene.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that. So if you're watching this, whether it's live or in the replay, Kate will actually be back with AARP Wisconsin on March 30th between about noon and 1. We're going to bring Kate and one of her amazing volunteers to come back to really dig deeper in some of the information that Kate's talking about. So if you go to the AARP Wisconsin website and you go over to events, you can pre-register. It is a virtual, so it's going to be via Zoom, but coming up on March 30th from noon to 1. If you cannot watch it live, we encourage you to still register for it, as we can send you the link to watch it in replay. So thank you so much, Kate, for mentioning that. So Kate, we might be having live viewers or in replay thinking, wow, this is like information I haven't heard about or I didn't know about. I didn't know this week was Brain Awareness Week. So how can families get help and support if they find out or even suspect that one of their loved ones has dementia?
Yeah, so of course, the first thing we recommend is talk to your primary care provider, your loved one's primary care provider, and start the process with, determining whether or not that concern has validity or whether or not maybe it's something else going on. You also can reach out to the Alzheimer's Association at any time. We have a 24/7 helpline, and you see that number on your screen. It's 800-272-3900. That's a free helpline you can call any time of the day or night, any day of the year, and talk to a care consultant about any concerns you might have. So if you need local support, they'll connect you with with your local outreach coordinator for follow-up. Otherwise, they can address a ton of concerns, questions, whether it's about behaviors or diagnosis or research. How do I get involved in a clinical trial? Or just what do I do when, my mom keeps asking me the same questions over and over and I don't know how to respond to her. So they have great information. You can always reach out. There is also our website, which is alz.org, and the Wisconsin website is alz.org/WI. You can visit our website. You can chat with care consultants as well if you don't want to make that phone call, or if you're in a situation where you need to be a little bit quieter. There's that option. Our local chapter also has a variety of resources. So we can do care consultations at the local level. We have regular education programs offered in person and virtually. We have support groups that are offered in person and virtually. So a call to the helpline can connect you to any of those resources. They can help you identify what's happening in your local community or what's happening over Zoom that you could potentially get connected to. I would also say, in addition to the association, in Wisconsin, each county has an Aging and Disability Resource Center, and Wisconsin is very progressive in our approach to dementia. And so the Aging and Disability Resource Centers have a position that's called a Dementia Care Specialist. And they are great partners to the Alzheimer's Association. They're a wonderful agency that provides a lot of support and resources through state and county programs. And so I certainly encourage you to become well acquainted with your county's Aging and Disability Resource Center, in addition to the Alzheimer's Association, if you suspect any type of dementia in a loved one.
Great. And Kate, it looks like we have a comment from one of our viewers. This is from Arlene. She said, great information. Hypertension is common in older adults. And that was probably the first time I heard of that, being maybe looked at a little differently. And Kate, I have one more question for you before we let you go.
Sure.
Could you maybe just talk briefly about memory cafes? Because I know memory cafes, I've heard of them. Unfortunately, when I started with AARP around COVID, I wasn't able to go visit one, but could you talk about what those are and maybe how they could be a resource for our viewers?
Yeah, of course. So each community has a little bit of a different setup when it comes to memory cafes, but they are an opportunity for individuals who are in the early stage of some type of dementia and their caregiver to attend and meet with other people who are on the same journey as them. So they get together and they don't necessarily talk about dementia, although that sometimes comes up because it's a shared life experience, but it's more, what can we do together? Can we create some type of craft project, listen to music, do some type of physical activity? Sometimes we've even done like cooking recipes, things like that, just an opportunity that is safe and comfortable for people living with dementia and their caregivers to know, hey, everybody in this group understands us, everybody in this group accepts us, and this is a great way for us to stay socially connected to our community and our friends and develop relationships. So we have great partners throughout the state who offer these. Many libraries offer them. Some YMCAs offer them. If you live in the Fox Valley area, the Fox Valley Memory Project offers many cafes. So there's a variety of different community agencies that offer them. In Green Bay, there's even one hosted at like the Botanical Gardens. So they're really cool opportunities to just get together with people on a similar life journey and do something fun together once a month.
Great. And also I know you plugged the Aging and Disability Resource Center, which is called ADRC. So we have viewers from all around the state. You could just put that in your search bar in Google, Yahoo, whatever you choose. Just put ADRC Wisconsin, and then there's a map that you can click on to see which one is the closest to you. So Kate, I want to thank you so much for this great information. And once again, if you're looking for additional information, more in depth of what Kate was talking about, we're going to be hosting an hour virtual workshop on March 30th from noon to 1 that you could register for at the AARP Wisconsin website. And it's free. It's open to all ages. So if you were watching this being like, ooh, even some more information would be really helpful, we encourage you to join us then. So Kate, thank you so much for joining us during Brain Awareness Week. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And of course, we always like to plug upcoming events that might be of interest to you. There we go. Friday. Oh, hold on. Okay, so Tuesday, March. Okay, so Tuesday. Yep. Here we go. Okay. You have Tuesday, March 22nd at 7 p.m. We have virtual trivia, so if that's of interest to you. Wednesday, March 23rd, so this is next Wednesday, in partnership with the Milwaukee County Historical Society. It's How Dry I Am, Milwaukee Prohibition. March 24th at 7 p.m., Movies for Grown-Ups, Forrest Gump, always a good movie to watch. Friday, March 25th, Brewing Up History in Milwaukee. If you have yet to sign up for that 3-day AARP Celebrate event, we encourage you to do so, and then you can sign up for that class, that virtual class. And then Tuesday, March 29th, Salsa Dance Class. So if you're interested in dancing around your house, we encourage you to register below or call 1-877-926-8300. Small Dollar Big Impact, of course, is a monthly grant that we encourage nonprofits, municipalities, and similar to apply for, which can be up to $1,000 to maybe you have a project or a program that you would like to launch, something really creative and innovative. You can find all that information, including the next application due date, which is April 19th. Please go to aarp.org/WI, and then it's SDBI, which stands for Small Dollar Big Impact. So once again, Tuesday, April 19th is the next application date. So next week is March 24th. So next Thursday's show is all going to be about National Ag Week, agriculture. So we're going to have some guests on talking about what that is. And we'd love for you to join us either live in replay, which you can join us back here next Thursday, March 24th from noon to 12:30. And as always, we appreciate you being here with us today. Look forward to seeing you next Thursday. And until then, be safe.